like to welcome everybody to the first in a series of Hangouts on Air that the Agency of Education, VitalLearn, and Google Educator Group Vermont have put together for Hour of Code Week. And our very first in the series is one where you're going to get a chance to hear from some Vermont students and Vermont educators on their experience with Google Apps Scripts and their coding experience with Google Apps Scripts. So I'm Lucy Delabriere, and I'd like to welcome everybody and introduce our team here on Google Hangout. We'll start with Elizabeth McCarthy, who is representing Google Educator Groups today. And Elizabeth, I'll let you tell us a little bit about GAG Vermont.
Cool. GAG or GIG, people don't know. I'm still debating what it's called. But I'm Elizabeth, and I'm a Google Educator trainer. And part of the GAG Vermont, and Lucy and I are the leaders of that in Vermont. And what Google Educator Groups are, it's organizations or groups around the world that that Google educators get together and to inspire and share and empower each other in schools and their students in using the Google tools. So you'll see throughout the year that we'll have events, and we have a Google educator community in the Google Plus community where we're sharing ideas and posting resources and just building an online community there that we hope you all join.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. And also on our team today are the students and from Champlain Valley Union High School and their teacher, Charlie MacFayden.
Hey guys.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, Charlie, your school, and your students.
Sure. So we're Champlain Valley Union. We're in Heinsberg, Vermont, and this is the computer programming class behind me. And one of the projects we did earlier this fall was learning to write some Google scripts. We started by learning some basic JavaScript, and from there jumped into the world of Google scripting, which is really powerful and fairly easy to learn, and allows students, or anyone for that matter, to interact with spreadsheets, emails, and calendars, and all those tools that you already know how to use in Google, how to automate tasks with those. And so a couple of the students will explain some of the things they worked on each year. People come to me with specific problems that are real problems at the school that need to be solved, and I turn them over to students, and they work on them. So we have a couple of examples from this year. We're going to start, I think we'll start with the, Kevin, you want to come up? Kevin's going to talk about a project. Yeah. Gotcha.
So my group project was first we weren't very good with their homework. So like if they needed teachers' approval on like how well they did, we had carry a sheet with them. That sheet that would like they would put in information on it, so like their name, or like the teacher's emails. It would put all that information to like a spreadsheet that looked nice, and it would show that just that way they could edit it and put in comments, and so they could view it.
Thank you. And Thomas is going to talk about a project involving student activities.
Hi, my name is Thomas Lang, and our group worked on a project to advertise events in the school. So we created a Google form, which by default, or Google Forms that students could use to submit an event that they want to advertise. By default, they put the data in a spreadsheet, and so we wrote a script that takes the data in the spreadsheet, sorts it out by the date of the event, and every week it compiles the data for the upcoming week, puts it in a Google Doc that can then be reviewed by someone and shared with the entire school.
And I'll quickly share the other projects. One was, because we're on an A-B type of schedule, it's really hard to set up your Google Calendar for your classes. So we had one project where you enter your school schedule, and it automatically populates your Google Calendar, depending on whether it's a red day or a white day, as we call them, which has always been annoying with Google Calendar because you can't do that unless it's every Monday or every Tuesday. So that was a nice script that would just basically fill in all your classes for the year. And we had one more this year where it was for our daily announcements, similar to the student activities, where basically just prettied up the text that was submitted from a form to a spreadsheet and made it available for our announcements. So those are the type of projects that students do. In the past, the students done a help desk system. Any type of task like that that could be done the long way, but it would be nice to have automated, are the types of things that the students take on.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the next step, I think, after that is maybe turning some of these into an add-on. I understand, Bjorn, that's where you come in.
Yeah. I don't know if I made the introductions at the beginning, but hi, I'm Bjorn Behrendt. I am the IT coordinator at Fairhaven High School, and I've actually written and published, I think, 5 different add-ons already. So I've been through the review process, and I mean, your students have certainly came up with some great ones. And the great part about these student projects is taking it to the next level. And Charlie, I'm going to mute you for a second. There you go. So I don't get the feedback. I think it's yours or one of the other ones. And so I thought I'd go through some of the process of it. So if there is students who want to take their add-on and make it publicly available to everybody, that would probably work out great. Elizabeth, I think it was you that was providing the feedback. So one of the things I wanted to do was you have your add-on. And students, don't be afraid to jump in, and if you have questions, please do. Let's see, where's my screen share? And so what you're looking at right here, actually, first place you want to go is developers.google.com and look for publishing your add-on. So when you think you have something ready to publish, you go here, scroll down, and there is a simple Google form that gets put in there, and it starts the publishing process. The next step that happens is you'll get a review sheet. This is going to be think about the most pickiest teacher you got, and they're going to pick through your project and with 2 different aspects. Here's Choice Eliminator. This is one of the ones I did for a Google form where it would kind of eliminate choices as you go through. It gives some information about it, listing, and like I said, there's 2 computers going slow. There's technical functionality and user experience that they both rate things on, and they go down through and they pick apart your entire presentation, and each time that you make a fix, you add a comment saying it's done or not done, and they want you to fix different things, such as I think this one was having me push over the little tiny settings, and it goes down through, and you have to basically fix them all. And this is the longest part of the process, is going back and forth with this doc advisor and cleaning up your script. It seems kind of like they're picking on you. You're really just getting all this information and you just want to get it out there. But they really do a good job of making sure you clean up your script and making it ready for the world and the rest of the world, and not just education but other things. And like you see, I have one from each of my different add-ons that I've posted out. The next place that it brings you to during the publishing process, and let's see, actually let's just open up Choice Eliminator, which is Choice Eliminator. So this is one of the forms that I've actually been actively working on. Tools, script editor. So I'm assuming many of the students here are used to the script editor. And the next process here is saving different versions. So anytime you make a change that you want to be published, you have to save a version. And then you go to Deploy as Forms Add-on. You have a title, you have a short description. This is where you post the version that you're publishing, a help URL, and a post-install tip. So you would go ahead and publish that. And then you have your Chrome Web Store, which is, who's there? Okay. This is the developer web store that you have. So for each of your add-ons that you get, you come to this store. And if you look at it, it'll go down through, and this is where you can update other information, the detailed descriptions, adding in the graphics, screenshots, the promotional images that kind of go with it. So all of these things are things that you have to think about as you're building your script. Not just the functionality, but now you have to get into the advertising portion of this. And the one part I wanted to get down to is the visibility options. By default, if you haven't published a script yet, you're not allowed to go to public or unlisted. I think you can still do private, which would go to a specific amount of people. Once you get approved through that review process that you saw, they'll say, okay, you can change it to unlisted. If you change it beforehand, they yell at you a lot. And I also think I have to go back but I believe there's like a $5 fee to be able to publish a document, a one-time fee. And once you get permission, you'll be able to get it to unlisted. So once you get all the functionality of your script, you get it to unlisted. When it's unlisted, they test it as an add-on with different links and things like that. And a lot of times you'll find out that your menu didn't work the way you expected it to because of some security things that went in, or they'll look at the description and things like that. And when you're all final and done, and you've gone back and forth, and everybody is and the docs advisor says yes, everything is copacetic, they say you can go public. You click the public, you click publish, and about an hour later, the world has access to your add-on, which is really cool. You get a lot of nice feedback, I should say just feedback, especially if it doesn't work. And that brings you to basically the publish process. Any changes you make get automatically populated within an hour. I did notice that it takes, once you make a change, you basically have to wait another hour to update a second change. So if you're troubleshooting, it can be kind of a slow process of publishing it, seeing if your change worked as an add-on, waiting that hour, then republishing it. But that's the dashboard portion of it. I did want to talk a little about UI styling and the CSS package, but before I do that, does anybody have any questions?
So that whole process, how long did it take you to get comfortable with that process?
I'm still not comfortable with the process. Going from the review, well, when I first started this, and they were first doing add-ons, the time that you filled out the form to the time that you got the review document, that took several weeks. I mean, almost 3 weeks. The last time I submitted, they surprised me by getting back to me within a week. I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't ready. I was trying to get that leeway time. So they've gotten that process of getting the review document quite fast back to you. If it's a simple menu, it can go kind of quickly. If you do have a lot of menus and interfaces, they have a tendency to take a lot of time. My last one, which was, what was it? Connected groups, which creates shared groups between contact groups. There was a lot of, it's not really a complicated script, but there was a lot of instructions that had to go with it. So they were very picky about making sure those instructions were very clear. They wanted different things put in place and skips put in, and so it took several months of me going back and forth trying to get my script ready to be public. Even though it worked, there was a lot of interface things that made it take a while to get back up to be ready to be public.
Great. Elizabeth, you've gone through that process recently yourself. Would you agree with that time frame that Bjorn went through?
Well, actually, I should say my son and I collaborated on a new add-on, and as Bjorn said, it's really exciting to see it published. We just did one called Roll Call, and my son really did he's a programmer, and I'm an educator, and so I had the idea, and because I needed it for an online course that I teach, and I shouldn't say kindly, well, happily, help me out. I don't know what the word is, and so I did, again, the idea and the design work as the user interface, because I also teach web design. So as Bjorn mentioned, it's really important that not only you have a script that works, that people understand how to use it, and I think the graphics are important as well. So it really helps to collaborate with, if you don't necessarily have the design skills, to work with someone who does. And I think that worked well for both of us. My son doesn't have the patience for the design, but he loves coding, and I love the design. So I think that worked. But the timing was really quick. Maybe they've got more people working on this, because it was just, we were expecting, it said a couple of weeks, and the next day he got that document to go through it and make the edits. And again, he's a very young person, I shouldn't say, but it's having patience to edit. And I think that's something, you make something, you think it's done, it works, but to actually, as Bjorn said, to go through that process, it requires a lot of patience, but in the end, it's really necessary.
Yeah, there's a choice eliminator almost didn't even get posted because I got so frustrated with it. Like, I thought I was done, and they basically said, no, you need to completely change your UI. So it was, and then I had a time frame because I wanted that one out before the Forms add-on was published. So it can get frustrating when they tell you need to change everything the way it looks, but stick it out. It's very rewarding in the end. But communication with Google is pretty quick. It's the fixing all the little tiny things and getting that feedback, thinking you're done, and then realizing, no, here's another long list of things that they want you to fix. And so, but
well, since this is Hour of Code Week and we're focusing on our students' coding abilities, Charlie, does do your projects, are they team projects or individual projects, and do your students get practice in the types of collaboration that we just heard from Elizabeth between a designer and a coder?
That's a really good question. They are team projects, and I just sort of naturally, I think. Well, you guys can speak to it, but people take on different roles. Where possible, and we weren't able to do it as much this year, but in the past, we were able to actually meet with the client, so to speak, and really find out the needs of the project. But yeah, I think it's sort of, there are 3 or 4 people on a team working together on the project. And one thing we don't do much with is user interface, which I know is a big. I was going to ask you, Bjorn, how much time you end up spending on the UI versus the functionality of the script.
Lately, I've been spending a lot more time on UI than functionality. Like Choice Eliminator, I had the functionality built in a couple days, and then spent several months on building the UI. Most of that is that's over time at night. But that was one of the other things I wanted to talk about is UI has become incredibly important in building these scripts and when you're working with the clients. And there is some styling guides on the developer's website that you really need to look at and follow. And I will say that as you're going through it, there's some deprecated ways of doing things. Like I don't know if any of your scripts use like the prompt or the alert menus. Those won't fly when it becomes a published add-on. And I know that's something I've had to get used to a lot, is not using those little pop-ups in my scripts for something that I know I want to publish. So going in, and HTML service is something that would be very beneficial for anybody learning UI to get into.
What do you mean? Can you tell us a little bit more about HTML service and maybe how these students could go learn about it?
Okay, well, let me show you a quick example of it. So I'm going to go screen share again. I'm going to go back into my Choice Eliminator here, because this is the one I've been spending a lot of time on UI with. So if I open up Choice Eliminator, I click Start, it pops up on the side here. This is the user interface, or UI. They're picky about having the loading icons, and they want these things to be smooth and really paying attention. So one of the things I've been doing is, notice I have these choice options. So if I click this, it actually pops up. So this is what's been taking me a lot of time, just getting these little nuances. And then if I click on choice options, it pops up with another loading all the choices of that particular thing. I have not gotten the functionality to work yet. I've been building the UI before I even got the functionality working. But what you look at when you look in the code right here is that first, that sidebar is actually just a simple HTML file. So you go down through, you add the style sheets. I use something called jQuery UI, which is it adds that nice accordion effect to it. Most of it's just simple head statements and things like that. And they tell you to load the JavaScript at the bottom if you read the documentation.
Okay.
So all this little JavaScript does is it kind of goes out to, like right here. It runs a function called getQuestions that's in my script that'll get all the questions. And when it comes back, it'll run populate questions. So I'll go down here. Here's the populate questions. Because I have a variable in here, that's the results, the return of this one. And this will go down through and it'll build each of those questions in that accordion. So having it to go out to your script, come back with data, and literally build the interface with that is kind of one of the most important. It's what I've been spending a lot more time on. I'm finding that it is a very important part of the scripting process is the user interface. And sometimes just building the interface and how the person interacts with it may take even longer, but it's still one of the most important processes in it.
Well, that I noticed that you put in some links in our planning document, and maybe we can add some of those links where people can take a look at that in the event comments, because we're just about out of time. We have a couple minutes left. Elizabeth, do you see any questions that we might want to address in the
Q&A? Let's see. There's 2 questions. One was, again, will the Hangouts continue after the hour of code? And the other was, Charlie's for Starly students, are you working on anything for the add-on store? Well, that, again, I think you answered that. So.
And the hour of code hangouts that we're doing are archived and will be on the Agency of Education page that we developed for this event. And I know that Bjorn has some hangouts that are happening also on a regular basis. Do you want to quickly talk about that, Bjorn?
Well, I've been doing podcasts. I slowed down this past year just because I've been working on several add-ons, actually. I think I'm going to be doing one at 3 o'clock. I originally posted it out there as was part of this project, but I just kind of kept it out there. So I'm going to be doing some more stuff on, I think, user interfaces at 3 o'clock today. But yeah, my website is edlisten.com. That's my blog, and that's probably one of the better places to follow me. I am very big on Google+. So if there's a social network that you want to follow what I do, that's the one to find me on. And yeah, I'm enjoying doing this. Always willing to answer questions, and especially if it's coming from a student.
So is there a community that students can join where they can get some support, and will they be welcomed in there as emerging coders?
Yeah, there's several of them. One of my favorite ones is started by Andrew Stillman, and I'm going to go get the name right now on my screen.
That is a good one, Bjorn. We use that. My son and I use that a lot because you get feedback from the people in that community while you're testing your add-ons, which is we found really useful.
Yeah, communicate and
Great.
moderate. App scripts for education, builders and users, and it's got a big apple with the app script logo built into it. That's probably one of my favorite ones to communicate with, especially if you're in education and building these.
Well, we'd like to thank you, Bjorn, for showing Charlie and his students the next steps after they've developed and tested some scripts within their school. I'm hoping that some of them will take the next step and start to move some of these scripts into add-ons. Thank you, Charlie, and students from CVU, code on.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you, Elizabeth, for representing Vermont Google Educator Groups. And we also want to thank the Agency of Education and VitalLearn for supporting this series. And you can find the whole series at thinkaboutcode.blogspot.com.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great Hour of Code week.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.